Good morning, everyone. Good Monday morning. I hope you're having an amazing morning. I hope you have an amazing week. This is Henry Harris, and I am the author of my brand new book called Facing Our Wounds. Many of you have been ordering these copies for several days, several weeks. Actually, I'm getting ready to ship off about 30 or 40 books here after I do this. And I'm excited about you receiving your copy of my book, Facing Our Wounds. And if you haven't received it, you can go to Amazon.com and order your book, or you can message me directly to receive your copy of Facing Our Wounds. There are 10 chapters in my book, and every week I cover each chapter. I don't go over everything and I don't read everything, because if that was the case, you won't be ordering the book. But I do read portions of each chapter, and I try to explain my heart and my intent and my thoughts, my overall review of my thoughts concerning that chapter. And this week we're going into session 4, and I want to talk about dealing with the wounds of rejection and abuse. I'm going to read portions of this chapter, and then I'll elaborate on my thoughts in regards to what I want to share. Chapter 4 says, dealing with the wounds of rejection and abuse. We must understand that not all rejection and abuse comes from outsiders. Sometimes we cause the rejection and abuse in our own lives. At one time, I didn't even love or even like myself. And as a result, it caused me to reject myself. How many of you know that the greatest rejection is self-rejection? Somebody type that in the comment section. Say the greatest rejection is self-rejection. Sometimes we look at people from the outside and we refer to them as she rejected me, he rejected me, or we'll say they rejected me. And it's true. We have people on the outside that may be rejecting you, but the reality of it is, I believe sometimes we cause our own rejection in our lives. And as a result of that, it puts us in a position where we don't even like ourselves. We don't affirm ourselves. We don't love or even like ourselves, or even who we are as an individual or as a person. And so I believe it's very important that in order to fully embrace who you are, that we don't be so preoccupied on the outsiders and how they're rejecting you. And that's true. They may be rejecting you, but I believe the greatest rejection is self-rejection. And until you learn how to accept yourself and love yourself and like yourself, I'm talking about every part of you, you will never really truly know how to love and accept and affirm anyone else. You have to give yourself, and I said this in the, I believe in the interview that I just did. You have to give yourself the grace to heal. You have to give yourself the grace to heal. So you see, when you reject yourself, you will always feel the need to want to be accepted by others. When you reject yourself, you will always feel the need to want to be accepted by others. And this is not just something I've made up. This is something that I've experienced. Because there was one time in my life that I didn't like myself. I didn't love myself. I mean, we're talking about everything from internal to external. And it took me a long time to look at myself in the mirror. That's why I'm calling it looking into the mirror of my own heart. Not your heart, but my heart. Because when you look in the mirror, all you see is a reflection of you. You don't see a reflection of no one else's trauma and pain All you see is you, and you have to deal with that at the end of the day. So it's hard to accept yourself when you reject yourself. One of the many ways I have overcome abuse, and just to remind you, I'm only reading portions of each chapter. One of the many ways I have overcome abuse and self-rejection is by learning to shift my perspective and asking myself the hard questions. And you know what those hard questions were? They were questions that I really didn't want to ask myself. They were questions that I really didn't want to embrace. Those hard questions was, why am I rejecting myself? Why am I abusing myself? And also, what is it producing in my life? What can I do to change it? And when I started to shift my perspective, I started to see the changes in my life. My friend, I don't know who this is for today, but you need to shift your thought, your frame of thought, your frame of mind. You need to shift your perspective, your way of thinking. When you change your way of thinking, that changes your way of being. And I believe that's very important. You have to change the way you think about yourself. You have to shift your perspective. You have to get out of this rejection mentality. They won't love me. They don't like me. They won't accept me. You don't even like yourself. You are constantly, and I'm not being harsh when I say this. I'm very loving when I say this. You don't, and the book is just very transparent. I'm sorry. So it may step on a couple of toes, but I'm not doing it in a way to hurt no one. I'm sharing my own experience. I didn't like myself at one time, which made it difficult for me to like other people. I didn't love who I was at one time, which made it difficult for me to love other people. In order to deal with rejection and confront it head on, you have to ask yourself the hard questions. Why am I rejecting myself? Why am I abusing myself? And what is it producing in my life? And what can I do to change it? Not for somebody else to change it. You have the power to change it. And when you change that, it is symbolic to shifting your perspective. And until you shift your perspective and change the way you view yourself, nothing about you will ever change. You may have been rejected and abused, but it was a lesson. I forgive you for what you did, but never again will I give you access into my space or my life. Your rejection doesn't stop my life from flourishing, but your abuse and rejection actually elevated me to a new level of being, a new level of thinking. Sometimes people think that if they reject you, they're somehow becoming a stumbling block for you. Sometimes people think that when they reject you, that they're somehow stopping you. But the reality of it is that they're not. They're elevating you. They're actually building you up to a person that will develop a new level of being, a new level of thinking. Because you don't have to stoop to their level. Even those who have abused you and rejected you, we can still graciously, in our own way of processing it, forgive them, but at the same time say, you know what? You rejected me. You hurt me. I love you from a distance, but I have to protect myself. As I say right here, but I will never again give you access into my space or my life. That's okay. It's okay to set those type of boundaries. When somebody abuses you or hurt you, it's okay to say, I forgive you. And later on down the chapter, I talk more about it. It's okay to say, you know what? This person has abused me. They have hurt me. They've violated my boundaries. They've done all these horrible things to me. I forgive you, but you will not be in my space ever again. That's called boundaries. Let's read a little bit more. The good news is, even if the rejection or abuse comes from family, you are still surviving. You can make it with or without them. You know, there's an old saying that says, blood is thicker than water. How many of y'all can relate to that quote? I believe that's partially true. Because let me tell you something. Sometimes it goes back to what I said about we look for rejection from outsiders. You know, maybe a friend or a coworker or an acquaintance or somebody out on the streets rejected us or abused us. But let me tell you something. Sometimes you have to watch the people that's in your own house. I don't know who I'm talking to today. Sometimes you have to watch people that's in your own family, in your own room. Because sometimes the rejection that we receive can come even from family. And when you're rejected by family, it's one thing to be rejected by outsiders and people out there, but it's another thing to be rejected by a wife or a husband or a brother or a sister or an aunt, uncle, cousin, nephew. It kind of hits you, that pain and that trauma kind of hits you differently when it comes from family. Now, this ain't mentioned in the book, but earlier when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about Joseph in the Bible. He wasn't rejected by outsiders. It was his own brothers that sold him into slavery. Sometimes your own family can try to sell you into trauma and try to sell you into pain, if that makes sense. It's not always people out there, and we're not ignoring that. There could be people out there that may try to hurt you in some way or reject you. But like I said, it hits different when it's family. But even if your family rejects you today, you can still stand with complete boldness and confidence, and you can say that I am still surviving. I am still standing with or without them. I want you to know that you can make it. If your family doesn't affirm you or love you or like you or accept you for whatever reason it may be, you're still thriving. You're still surviving with or without them. Listen to this part. I love this part. They have put up an emotional wall for a reason, often to protect themselves from being abused again. It takes a special person to come in so that they give that person full access to them and let the wall down. I understand this all too well. That part of the book of chapter 4 talks about an emotional wall. How can I explain this? Sometimes people put up, there's a reason why someone has an emotional wall up. Let's just visualize it. You're here and you have that wall in front of you and you have another person on the other side. For whatever reason, they cannot penetrate that wall. They cannot come through it. You know why? Because they've been hurt. They've experienced trauma. This happens in relationships, friendships. And we always wonder, or we often wonder, excuse me, we often wonder, why won't they allow me into their space and into their life? They got that wall up and I can't get through to them. And we often like to judge people who put up that emotional wall, but we rarely ever ask the question, why do they even have it up to begin with? And at one time in my life, I was hurt so bad in my life, as you have been, that I put up that emotional wall with the intent of believing that if I did that, I would never be hurt again. But boy, how wrong was I? I used to put up an emotional wall prematurely thinking that if I did, it would keep me safe and I would never be hurt again. If you perceive or see everyone as a potential target or think that everyone is out to hurt you, that can be damaging. And sometimes you can be hurt by so many people, or you can be traumatized so bad that people that even come in your life to help you, you perceive them as a threat. How many understand what I'm saying? How many have been there? You've been hurt so bad. You've been traumatized so bad. You have been damaged so bad by people. It's that you view everybody as a potential threat or a potential danger. And that's part of the reason why you have that emotional wall up. And it takes a special person, as I mentioned in that book. It takes a special person to come in your life to let that wall down. But the person who has that emotional wall up, it's their way of processing their pain and their hurt. And if they never bring that wall down, that's their business. But there's a reason why they have that wall up. And if a person allows you into what I call their part of their world or their space, they're allowing you not only into their space, they're allowing you into their pain and into their trauma, into their hurt. You're walking on holy ground, so to speak. That's something that you should honor. Because for somebody else who may have tried to get through to them, maybe they couldn't get through for whatever reason. Maybe they felt retaliated against or judged or whatnot. But when somebody opens up to you, when somebody shows you their wounds, that's something that we should wear as a badge of honor. Because these days, not too many people open up about their pain and their internal emotions and things that they go through in life. Not too many people do that. So I think that's amazing. So I enjoy sharing my thoughts on that. Join me next week. We're going to go into week 5, session 5. We're going to talk about stop covering your scars. See, I don't know if you can see it, but that's chapter 5. Stop covering your scars. And think about it. To those who have my book, you can kind of follow along, even though I'm skipping around a little bit. I want to encourage all of you that if you haven't ordered your copy of Facing Our Wounds, go to Amazon.com, type in Facing Our Wounds by Henry Harris, order the book, or you can message me directly right here on Messenger, and I would love to get a copy to you. I hope you and pray that you have a blessed and prosperous day. And remember, face your wounds. And also remember that what you bury will never heal. Your wounds are now upon the surface, and now you have to deal with it. Keep in mind, as I said today, no matter who rejects you, whether it's your family or whatever, you will conquer and you will survive.